Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear learners. A very warm welcome to the Chase Academy and welcome to English Grade 11. Dear learners, today we are going to talk about yet another students learning outcome that we have, and this is also about reading. So students, when we are reading any kind of text, we actually summarize it to show our understanding, to summarize and paraphrase everything in very few words using our own words, keeping the message intact. We summarize the text, and we are often asked to summarize any given passage in the examination as well. Now students, the SLO is simple over here. We have two learning outcomes today. First one, let us read the SLO and then break it down to understand. First, summarize complex concepts, processes, or information by paraphrasing them using correct language structure, transitional devices, own words, and relevant punctuation marks. It means that whenever we are reading something that is a little hard to understand, where there is a main idea, there are supporting details, whenever we are reading such a text with complex concepts, or it can be describing a process or any piece of information, any informational text, we will have to summarize by paraphrasing. It means we rephrase, we use our own words, own phrasing to describe it in few and minimum words possible. We use correct language structure. It means that even if we are condensing it, even if we are shrinking the text, the language has to be in the good and perfect structure according to the English language and its conventions. Then we have to use transitional devices in order to link the different ideas or different sentences together in order to present it very well. So we know that transitional devices are words like however, therefore, firstly, secondly, moreover. You have a lot of different transitional devices. We will use our own words in summary. Yes, this is the very important thing that we need to follow, using our own words and also the relevant punctuation marks. So it means that we have to read something and then summarize it. Secondly, whenever we are reading a text, whether it's fictional or non-fictional, we need to understand what is the narrative style, what is the style of narration, the style of conveying the message. So we talk about evaluating the different points of view, or POV, narrative style or perspective. For example, it can be first person, third person narrative. Third person can be further divided into two types: third person limited and third person omniscient. So we need to see that what the narration type is. So let's get started. I hope students that you have the books with you, and you can see there are multiple texts, different types of text available in the chapter number 6, and you can see that there is a story, there is fiction, there is non-fiction text, there are poems as well. So try to understand what the narrative style is, what is the point of view that is mentioned and through which the writer has conveyed the message. This is the vertical linkage of grade 10, and it is quite similar to our current SLO. This gives you a very good idea of the vertical linkage of the SLO according to the curriculum. Now students, here we have an extract, the story of the priorities of the story about the priorities and a jar. Now let's read it, and after reading it we will try to summarize it. Bobby Jebb, the first woman to have run the entire Boston Marathon, sculpted the 12-inch bronze figurines of a ponytailed girl running that were given as trophies to John Benoit Samuelson, Julie Brown, who's an athlete and is fording the top 3 women marathoners at the US Olympic trials in 1984. So Bobby Jebb, what we know about her: the first woman to have run the entire Boston Marathon, the long race where you have to run for hours, sculpted the 12-inch bronze figurine of a ponytailed girl running that were given as trophies to John Benoit Samuelson, Julie Brown, and is fording the top 3 women marathoners, and they were all given the trophies of a figure who's running. And this is in the year 1984. A professor of philosophy stood before his class with some items in front of him. When the class began, wordlessly he picked up a large empty mayonnaise jar and proceeded to fill it with rocks, about 2 inches in diameter. Then he asked the students if the jar was full. They agreed that it was full. So, the professor then picked up a box of pebbles and poured them in the jar. He shook the jar lightly and watched as the pebbles rolled into the open areas between the rocks. The professor then asked the students again if the jar was full. They chuckled, means they laughed, and agreed that it was indeed full this time. The professor picked up a box of sand and poured it in the jar. The sand filled the remaining open areas of the jar. Now, said the professor, I want you to recognize that this jar signifies your life. The rocks are the truly important things, such as family, health, and relationships. If all else was lost and only the rocks remained, your life would still be meaningful. The pebbles are the other things that matter in your life, such as work or school. The sand signifies the remaining small stuff and material possessions. If you put sand into the jar first, there is no room for the rocks or pebbles. The same can be applied to your lives. If you spend all your time and energy on the small stuff, you will never have room for the things that are truly important. Pay attention to the things in life that are critical to your happiness and well-being. Take time to get medical checkups, play with your children, go for a run, and write your grandmother a letter. There will always be time to go to work, clean the house, or fix the disposal. Take care of the rocks first, things that really matter. Set your priorities. The rest is just pebbles and sand. So the professor is delivering a very good piece of information and advice in the form of an experiment. Finding time in the day for fitness or participating in other athletic endeavors should be considered a rock for us all. Psychologically, physiologically, working out releases endorphins in the body. These endorphins are natural pain relievers produced by the body. This is what gives us the natural high experienced after a workout. This natural high has the potential to positively influence our daily interactions by making us feel better about ourselves. Make fitness a rock solid priority in your life and reap the benefits. The professor picked up a box of all right, let's wait. Now, students, this is a lesson that I hope you have read with me. You can read it again. You can find such good and valuable piece of advice that you can apply in your life. And so this is a very meaningful text. Now we need to summarize it as per the question. Summarize the text of the lesson in simple words using correct sentence structure. We have to use our own words. We have to shrink the text that we have just read, which was rather long. So we need to make the summary in a shorter way. Now, the text or the lesson uses two analogies, two comparisons to emphasize the importance of life priorities. What should we prioritize in life? First, it compares a marathon to the journey of life, that the journey of life is just like a long race, a marathon, suggesting we focus on the big picture. Second, it uses a jar filled with rocks, pebbles, and sand to illustrate how we should prioritize. You can see that the transitional words like second and first, these are your transitional devices or transitional words. The rocks represent essential things like family and health. The pebbles are less important, and the sand material possessions. So the order is rocks, pebbles, and sand. Pebbles and rock, right? Rock, pebbles, and sand. The text advises prioritizing the rocks first, as filling the jar with sand leaves no room for the essentials. Additionally, now this is also a traditional device. It highlights the benefits of physical activity, explaining how it can positively impact our well-being. Now, this is the whole summary. We have used our own words, we have paraphrased the whole lesson in few words, and this is how we summarize any given text. Now, let's talk about the points of view. There are different points of view, as we have talked about it, and you can tell a story, a narration, in so many different ways. So, what is the narrative style or point of view of the story? This narrative that we have just read about rocks, pebbles, and sand, about priorities of life, what do you think? Is it a first person point of view, second person point of view, or third person point of view? Let's find out. Students, this is third person limited. The point of view is third person. How do we find it? Because in the story, if we go back, you can find that the narrator is not part of the story. The narrator is just narrating us and he's not part of the story. So this makes it a third person. And you can see words like they, he, she, and this tells us that this is in the third person pronouns, hence it is third person. But why is it third person limited? Why not third person omniscient? Students, let me give you a clear difference between third person limited and third person omniscient. In third person, the narrator who is telling the story is not in the story. He is just narrating it. And when he or she, the narrator, has just the surface level knowledge about all the characters, of course, he or she knows about all the characters, but on the surface level. But this is called third person limited. Third person omniscient point of view says that the narrator tells us about the inner thoughts, feelings, sensations, and emotions of the characters just like they are thinking it or feeling it. So this means omniscient. Omniscient means all knowing, somebody who knows everything about every person, about every character. So that is called third person omniscient. Here in the story that we have just read, this piece of literature was actually in third person limited because there is no instance of inner thoughts and feelings of the students or the professors. Hence, this is third person but in the limited point of view. So, hence, this is third person limited. Third person limited is a point of view in which the narrator tells the story from one character's perspective at a time, using the pronouns he, she, they to describe their thoughts and actions. All right. Here's an example. He knew it would be over the moment he approached her. So this is actually an example. How do we find that this is third person? He, her. These are the pronouns that tell us that this is in the third person limited, third person point of view. Another thing to know about third person omniscient is third person omniscient is a narrative point of view where the narrator knows and can reveal the thoughts, feelings, and experiences of all characters in the story. This narrative perspective allows the narrator to provide insights into multiple characters. It means that the narrator can individually tell us about each and every character's thought, understanding, feelings, and sensation. And he's all knowing. The narrator knows everything about everybody, and he can actually tell a story from one character's point of view or from the rest of the character's point of view. So now here is an example. Example of third person omniscient. As the campers settled into their tents, Zara hoped her eyes did not betray her fear, and Lisa silently wished for the night to quickly end. Now, how do we know this is? What point of view is this? Is it first person, second, or third? Of course, this is third person narrative because we can see these pronouns. All right, there. So we don't have I or you pronouns, rather we have third person point of views, third person pronouns. And this is third person limited or omniscient. This is third person omniscient. Why? Because the narrator is revealing the inner thoughts. Her eyes did not betray her fear. Zara hoped, which is an abstract thing and it's a very personal thing. Lisa silently wished for the night to quickly end. That's an example of a third person omniscient narration. And Multiple characters, emotions, and inner thoughts are available to the reader, and you can get into the head, into the feelings and emotions of all the characters that the narrator is narrating to you. Now, here's an activity you have to find out, you have to figure out that what point of view does it have. All right, this is an activity for you to do. So, what is the point of view of this passage? All right, next we have your worksheet attached that is on the topic of point of views. Read this. What is the narrator's perspective? Brian could not bear to be on the roof of the skyscraper any longer. He wasn't usually afraid of heights, but the wind was so strong and Rufus kept messing with him. So find out what is the narrative perspective and how do you know it. So same goes for the rest of these different passages. Apply what you have learned just now and get your resources. Now students, you will have a worksheet, a skill sheet, a question bank. All of these are available. I hope that the lecture is quite clear now. And also, before leaving, I would like to show you some resources, worksheet and skill sheet just right now. Yes, students, now this is the worksheet that we have just looked over here. Solve this worksheet and understand it well. Now, yes, that's it. All right, now students, solve the activities and the worksheet. I'll see you in the next video lesson. Till then, practice point of view and summarizing as much as you can. For summarizing, you can take any passage from the textbook of any chapter and then summarize in your own words. Remember that you have to use your own words. Use the transitional devices. Follow a good structure. Follow a flawless structure of English, and then you can say that you have summarized it, or you have rather paraphrased the given text in your own words. And you have to be very much considerate about the length of the summary or the paraphrased version of the text. I'll see you in the next video lesson. Till then, take care of yourselves and Allah